humiliating. How could you do this to me?
It wasn't like that, Organizations.
Please, not here.
Welcome back to Storytime Central, where we bring you the most jaw-dropping, real-life drama that will leave you absolutely speechless. So picture this: you are sitting at your desk on a normal Tuesday afternoon, responding to emails, sipping your third coffee of the day, when suddenly you hear heels clicking aggressively across the office floor, and then a voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Where is Daniel? Where is my husband? I need to speak to my husband right now." And in that split second, your entire world stops, because Daniel, that is the name of the man you have been secretly seeing for the past 4 months, the man who holds your hand under restaurant tables, the man who whispers sweet things in your ear at midnight, the man who told you he was single and ready for something real. But now there is a woman, a beautiful, furious woman, standing in the middle of your workplace, calling him her husband, and before you can even process what is happening, she is walking toward your desk, her eyes locked on yours, and she asks the question that will haunt you forever. "Are you the one sleeping with my husband?" That was the moment my life completely fell apart, and today I am going to tell you exactly how I ended up in that nightmare. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and buckle up, because this story is wild. My name is Emma. I am 28 years old, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. I was working as a marketing coordinator at one of those trendy advertising agencies in central London, you know, the type: exposed brick walls, beanbag chairs in the break room, a ping pong table that no one actually uses, and a staff full of ambitious 20 and 30 somethings, all trying to climb the corporate ladder while pretending work does not feel like work. I had been there for about 2 years, and honestly, I loved it. The projects were creative, the pay was decent, and I had finally started to feel like I was building something real after a pretty devastating breakup the year before. That breakup had destroyed me. My ex had cheated on me with someone I considered a close friend, and the betrayal had left me feeling worthless, like I was not enough, like there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made people want to hurt me. So when I started this job, I made a promise to myself: no more relationships, no more letting my guard down, just work, travel, self-improvement, and maybe eventually I would be ready to trust someone again. But as they say, the universe has a sick sense of humor, because just when you decide you are done with love, that is exactly when it finds you, or at least that is what I thought was happening. I first noticed Daniel at the company Christmas party. It was one of those over-the-top events with an open bar, a DJ, and everyone dressed up, trying to look professional but also fun. Daniel was hard to miss. He was 35 tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that he styled in that effortlessly cool way, sharp jawline, blue eyes that actually sparkled when he smiled, and this confidence that made him magnetic. He was a senior account director, which meant he was several levels above me in the company hierarchy, but unlike some of the other senior staff who barely acknowledged us junior employees, Daniel was different. He was friendly, charming, made everyone feel important when he talked to them. I was standing at the bar that night, trying to decide between red wine or champagne, and honestly, feeling a bit awkward, because I did not know many people well enough to just jump into their conversations, when I heard a voice beside me say, "Why not both? Life is too short for boring choices." I turned, and there he was, Daniel, grinning at me, holding 2 glasses, one with wine, one with champagne, as if he had read my mind. I laughed and said, "That is either really good advice or really terrible advice, depending on how tomorrow morning goes." He handed me the champagne and said, "Well, if tomorrow is terrible, at least tonight will be memorable." We ended up talking for the rest of the night, and I mean, really talking, not just small talk about work, but deep conversations about life, dreams, fears, what we wanted out of our careers, where we saw ourselves in 5 years, our favorite travel destinations. He told me he had backpacked through Southeast Asia in his 20s, and I told him about my dream of visiting Japan during cherry blossom season, we bonded over our shared obsession with terrible reality TV shows. He admitted he was weirdly invested in Love Island. And I confessed, I had watched every season of Married at First Sight. We talked about our families. He said his parents were retired and lived in the countryside, and I told him about my complicated relationship with my mother, who always thought I should have become a doctor instead of going into marketing. What struck me most that night was how present he was, how he actually listened when I spoke, asked follow-up questions, remembered details. Most guys I had dated were just waiting for their turn to talk, but Daniel made me feel heard, seen, interesting. And after the year I had been through, that felt like oxygen. I did not think much of it that night. I figured it was just a nice conversation with a coworker at a party. But the next week, when I got back to the office, Daniel sent me a message on Slack saying it was great talking to you at the party. We should grab coffee sometime, if you are up for it. My heart did a little flip, but I told myself to be cool, to not read too much into it, so I replied casually, "Sure, that sounds nice," and that is how it started. Innocent enough, just to coworkers getting coffee during lunch breaks, talking about campaigns, brainstorming ideas for pitches, laughing about office drama. But over the next few weeks, those coffee breaks turned into lunches at the little Italian place around the corner, and those lunches turned into staying late at the office together, working on projects, and those late nights turned into something I had not expected to feel again. Genuine connection. About 2 months after that Christmas party, things shifted. We were working on this massive campaign for a luxury car brand, and the pitch was due the next morning. Everyone else had left the office, and it was just Daniel and me, surrounded by presentation boards, color samples, mock-up designs, and about 6 empty coffee cups. It was nearly 11 at night, and we were both exhausted, punchy from caffeine and lack of sleep. When we finally finished putting together the final presentation, Daniel leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms over his head, and said, "Emma, I have to tell you something." My stomach flipped. I did not know what he was going to say, but the way he was looking at me made my heart race. He said, "I know this is probably wildly inappropriate and terrible timing, but I cannot stop thinking about you. I look forward to coming to work because I know I will see you. I make excuses to walk past your desk. I volunteer for projects you are on just so I can spend more time with you, and I know we work together, and this could complicate everything, but I just needed you to know. I should have been more cautious, should have thought about the implications about workplace politics, about power dynamics, but in that moment all I felt was relief, because I had been feeling the exact same way. I had been trying to convince myself it was just a crush, that it would pass, but the truth was I was falling for him. So instead of overthinking it, I just said, "I feel the same way," and then he kissed me. It was one of those kisses that you feel in your entire body, the kind that makes you forget where you are, the kind that makes everything else disappear. We made out in that conference room like teenagers, and when we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathless, laughing at how ridiculous and reckless and perfect it felt. He said, "So what do we do now?" And I said, "I have no idea, but I do not want to stop." And he said, "Me neither." That night was the beginning of everything. We decided to keep our relationship secret because office romances were frowned upon at our company, especially between someone at his level and someone at mine. We did not want people gossiping or thinking I was getting special treatment or that he was abusing his position, so we kept it quiet. We would leave the office separately and meet at his apartment in Shoreditch, or sometimes at mine. We would have dinner together, watch movies, stay up talking until 2 in the morning about everything and nothing. The physical chemistry between us was intense, but it was more than that. I felt like I had found someone who truly got me, who appreciated me, who made me feel beautiful and valued in a way I had not felt in years. Daniel would text me good morning every single day. Without fail, he would send me funny memes during work hours just to make me smile. He remembered that I loved Italian food so he would surprise me with takeout from my favorite restaurant. He bought me a book I had mentioned, wanting to read. He planned a whole evening where we cooked dinner together and slow danced in his kitchen to old jazz music. It felt like something out of a romantic movie, and I was completely swept up in it. We talked about the future in vague, dreamy ways, about maybe taking a trip to Paris together, about eventually going public with our relationship once we figured out how to navigate the workplace complications, about what it would be like to not have to hide how we felt. He told me he had been in a long-term relationship that ended badly about a year ago. He said his ex was controlling, jealous that they had grown apart, and the breakup had been messy but necessary. He seemed completely over it, ready to move on, ready for something real with me. I told him about my ex, about the cheating, about how it had shattered my confidence, and he held me and told me that anyone who cheated on me was an idiot that I deserved so much better, that he would never do that to me. Looking back now, I realize how perfectly he played the role of the emotionally available, caring boyfriend, how he said all the right things, made all the right gestures. But at the time I believed every word, because I wanted to believe it, because after everything I had been through, I desperately wanted to believe that good men still existed, that love could still be real and honest and safe. But there were red flags. I just did not want to see them. He never wanted to take pictures together, and when I suggested we take a selfie one night, he laughed. It often said he was just not a social media person, that he barely posted anything, which seemed reasonable enough, except when I looked at his profiles later, they were basically empty. No recent posts, no tagged photos, nothing that indicated what his life actually looked like. He was always vague about his weekends. When I would ask what his plans were, he would say things like, oh, just catching up on work, or visiting family, or running errands. Nothing specific, nothing that I could picture. He never invited me to hang out with his friends or coworkers outside of work. When there were after work drinks or team events, he would always say he was tired or had other plans, and when I suggested we go together, he would say he wanted to keep our relationship separate from office socializing, that it would be too risky, that people might figure it out, and I accepted that explanation because it made sense on the surface. But deep down something felt off. There were nights when he would not respond to my texts for hours, and when I asked about it the next day, he would say he fell asleep early, or his phone died, or he was dealing with family stuff. Always a reasonable excuse, always just plausible enough that I did not push it. And that is the thing about liars, they are good at making you feel crazy for questioning them, good at making you doubt your own instincts. I remember one Saturday, I suggested we spend the day together, go to a museum, maybe grab brunch, and he said he could not, that he had to help his mom with something at her house. I said, that is sweet, can I come meet her? And he got weird about it, said she was not really in a place to meet anyone new, that she was going through some health issues and he did not want to stress her out. I felt guilty for even asking, so I dropped it, but that nagging feeling in my gut got a little louder. 4 months into our relationship, I was completely in love with him. I would lie in bed at night imagining what it would be like when we finally went public, imagining introducing him to my friends, to my family, imagining us moving in together, maybe getting engaged. Eventually I had started looking at flats we could afford together, started imagining a whole future, and I thought he was imagining it too, because he would say things like, when we do not have to hide anymore, or one day we will look back at this and laugh about how secretive we had to be. But then everything changed on one random Tuesday afternoon in March. I was at my desk working on some social media analytics for a client, totally absorbed in spreadsheets and engagement metrics, when I heard a commotion near the front of the office, raised voices, the sound of heels clicking fast and sharp across the marble floor. I looked up and saw our receptionist standing up, looking flustered, trying to stop someone, and that is when I saw her. A woman probably in her early 30s, blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, wearing an expensive looking cream trench coat and carrying a designer handbag was marching through the office with purpose. With fury, she blew past the receptionist, ignored the confused looks from everyone and headed straight toward the senior management wing. And then I heard her voice loud, clear cutting through every conversation in the office. Where is Daniel? Where is my husband? I need to speak to my husband right now. Time stopped. Husband. The word echoed in my head like a scream. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands started shaking. I could not breathe, could not think, could not process the word I had just heard. This could not be happening. This could not be real. Daniel did not have a wife. He was single. He told me he was single. He would not lie about something like that. He could not. But the woman kept walking, kept calling out for him, and then I saw Daniel emerge from his office, his face pale, absolutely drained of color. The moment he saw her, he froze, and I watched as every ounce of confidence, every bit of that charm I had fallen for completely evaporated. Sarah, he said, and his voice was quiet, strained. What are you doing here? We can talk about this at home, please. Not here. But Sarah was not having it. Not here, she repeated, her voice rising. You have not been home in 3 days. Daniel, 3 days. I have been calling you, texting you, and you have ignored every single message. And then I found these. She pulled something out of her bag. Receipts. It looked like hotel receipts. In your jacket pocket. So no, we are not talking about this at home. We are talking about it right here, right now. Because I deserve to know what the hell is going on. The entire office had gone silent. Everyone had stopped working, stopped talking. Every single person was watching this scene unfold. I felt like I was going to throw up. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear. But I was frozen in my chair, unable to move, unable to look away. Daniel tried to reach for her arm, tried to guide her toward a conference room, but she yanked her arm away, and her voice got even louder. Do not touch me. Do not you dare touch me. Just tell me the truth. Who is she? Who have you been screwing behind my back? One of the senior partners came rushing out of his office, looking horrified. Daniel, Sarah, please, this is not the place for this. Let us go somewhere private and discuss this like adults. But Sarah was beyond reason. She turned back to Daniel, her eyes scanning the office, landing on different women, as if she was trying to figure out which one of us it was. And then for just a split second, Daniel glanced in my direction, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Sarah followed his gaze, and suddenly, her eyes locked on mine. My heart stopped. She started walking toward me, and I genuinely thought I might pass out. She stopped right in front of my desk, towering over me, and said, You, is it? You are, you the one my husband has been sleeping with? Her voice was loud enough that everyone heard. Every single person in that office was now staring directly at me. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat had closed up. I could not speak, could not defend myself, could not do anything but sit there as my entire world crumbled. Daniel rushed over. Sarah, stop. You are making a scene. This is not fair to anyone. Please let us just go somewhere and talk. But his words confirmed everything. Sarah needed to know. Oh, so there is someone, she said, her eyes still on me. You are not even denying it. She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. Now we have been married for 6 years, she said. Do you understand that? 6 years. We have a 4-year-old daughter at home, a little girl who has been asking where her daddy is, and you have been doing what? Playing house with him, sneaking around while I am at home raising our child alone. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped my heart out. A daughter. He had a daughter, a wife, a whole entire family that he had hidden from me. I finally found my voice, and it came out as barely a whisper. I did not know. I swear to God, I did not know. He told me he was single. Sarah laughed, but it was bitter, broken. Of course he did. That is what they always say, right? And you just believed him. Did you never think it was weird that he kept you hidden? That you never met anyone in his life? That everything was always so secret? Or did you just not care? Her words cut deeper than anything I had ever felt, because she was right. I had ignored every single red flag because I wanted so badly to believe in what Daniel and I wanted to believe I was special, that what we had was real, but I was just another fool, another woman he had manipulated. My eyes filled with tears, but I refused to let them fall, not here, not in front of everyone. I said again, my voice stronger this time, I did not know about you or your daughter. If I had known, I would never do this to another woman I was lead to, just like you were. Sarah stared at me for a long moment, and I could see she was trying to decide whether to believe me, whether I was another victim or a willing participant in destroying her family. Finally, she said, you know what, maybe you are telling the truth. Maybe you really did not know, but it does not change anything, does it? My marriage is still destroyed. My daughter still does not have her father home, and you still slept with my husband, so we are both victims here, but we are also both suffering because of him. She turned to look at Daniel, who was standing there, looking absolutely pathetic, and said, you are coming home right now, and you are going to explain everything, and then we are going to figure out if this marriage is even salvageable. The senior partner stepped in again. Daniel, you need to leave immediately. Sarah, I am going to have to ask you to leave as well. This has become completely inappropriate and disruptive. We will address this situation tomorrow, but right now, both of you need to go. Security will escort you out if necessary. His voice was firm, authoritative, the kind of voice that people do not argue with. Sarah gave me one last look, and I could not tell if it was pity or disgust, or maybe both. Then she grabbed Daniel by the arm and started pulling him toward the exit. He looked back at me one time, and the look on his face was pure guilt mixed with fear, mixed with something that might have been sadness or regret. I stared right back at him, and I hoped he could see the hatred in my eyes, the betrayal, the absolute disgust I felt for him. I hoped he understood that whatever we had was dead, that I would never forgive him for this. After they left the office, stayed silent for maybe 10 seconds, and then the whispers started like wildfire, spreading through every desk, every corner. I could hear fragments of conversations. Oh my God, can you believe that I knew something was weird about them? She really had no idea he has a kid. This is insane. I felt every single pair of eyes on me, judging me, pitying me, gossiping about me. I grabbed my bag, stood up on shaky legs, and walked as quickly as I could to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and completely fell apart. I sobbed so hard I could barely breathe. My entire body was shaking. I felt humiliated, betrayed, stupid. How could I have been so blind? How could I have ignored every single warning sign? How could I have let myself fall for someone who was capable of this kind of deception? I stayed in that bathroom for at least 20 minutes, trying to pull myself together, trying to figure out how I was going to face everyone, how I was going to walk back to my desk and pretend to work. When I finally came out, my eyes were red and swollen, but I tried to compose myself. I walked back to my desk, keeping my head down, avoiding eye contact with anyone. But as I sat down, I saw a note on my desk. It was from HR asking me to come to their office immediately. My stomach sank. I knew this was coming. I knew there would be consequences. The HR meeting was brutal. They sat me down in a small, windowless room and started asking questions. When did your relationship with Daniel start? Did you know he was married? Were there any inappropriate interactions at the office? Did he ever use his position to pressure you into anything? Did anyone else know about the relationship? I answered everything honestly. I told them I had no idea he was married, that he had explicitly told me he was single, that our relationship had started outside of work, and we had kept it secret, specifically to avoid workplace complications. I told them I would have never gotten involved with him if I had known the truth. The HR director, a stern woman in her 50s, looked at me with what might have been sympathy and said, Emma, believe that you did not know about his marital status. However, this situation has created a very uncomfortable work environment. We have had multiple employees express concern about the incident today, and we need to take time to investigate whether any company policies were violated. Daniel has been suspended pending a full investigation. As for you, we think it would be best if you took the rest of the week off paid leave to let things settle down and give everyone some space. I nodded, unable to speak. I signed some paperwork, acknowledging the conversation, and then I left. I did not go back to my desk. I did not collect my things. I just walked straight out of that building, got into my car, and drove home in a complete daze. When I got to my flat, I collapsed on my couch and stared at the ceiling for hours. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from coworkers, some offering support, some probably just fishing for gossip. I ignored all of them except one, from my best friend Jess, who said she had heard what happened and was coming over. When Jess arrived, she took one look at me and pulled me into a hug, and I broke down all over again. I told her everything from the beginning, how Daniel and I had met, how perfect everything had seemed, how he had lied about everything. Jess listened without judgment, and when I was done, she said, "Emma, this is not your fault. You were manipulated by someone who is clearly a professional liar. You trusted him, and he betrayed that trust. The only person who should feel ashamed right now is him, not you." But I did feel ashamed. I felt stupid and naive and guilty, even though logically I knew I had not known. I could not stop thinking about Sarah, about their daughter Lily, about how I had been part of destroying their family, even if I had not meant to. That night I could not sleep, so I did something I had never really done before. I looked Daniel up on social media properly, thoroughly. I had seen his Facebook before, but he barely posted anything, so I had never really dug deeper. But now I clicked through everything, and there it was, his entire life laid out in photos, albums and albums of pictures with Sarah, their wedding photos from 6 years ago, where they both looked so happy, so in love. Photos of Sarah, pregnant, glowing. Photos of their daughter Lily as a newborn, then as a toddler with blonde curls, and Daniel's blue eyes. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations to the beach, to the mountains. Photos of a complete, happy family, a life he had built with someone else while he was telling me he was single and ready to build a life with me. I felt physically sick looking at those photos. Sarah looked genuinely happy in most of them, holding Lily, laughing at something Daniel said, kissing him in front of the Eiffel Tower. This was not a woman in an unhappy marriage. This was not someone who was just staying together for the kids like Daniel had tried to claim. Later, this was a family, and I had been the other woman, without even knowing it. Over the next few days, I received several messages from Daniel begging me to talk to him too, let him explain. "Emma, please, I am so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was going to tell you. I swear I was just waiting for the right time. My marriage has been over for years. Sarah and I are just roommates." I read his messages with disgust. Every single word was a manipulation, another lie. Even now, he could not just tell the truth. He had to make excuses, try to justify what he had done, try to make me feel like I was special enough to deserve his betrayal of his family. I blocked him on everything: my phone, WhatsApp, Instagram, email. I did not want to hear another word from him. I did not want his excuses or his justifications or his pathetic attempts to make himself feel better. But then I got a message that I was not expecting. It was from Sarah on Facebook, and my first instinct was to delete it without reading it, but something made me open it. The message said, "I am not reaching out to attack you or blame you. I actually believe that you did not know about me or Lily. I am messaging you because I think you deserve to know the truth about who Daniel really is. This is not the first time he has done this. There was another woman too. Years ago, a woman from his old job. He told her the same things he told you. That he was single, that his ex was crazy, that he wanted a future with her. When I found out about that one, he swore it would never happen again. He promised me he would go to therapy, that he would work on himself, that he would be a better husband and father. I stayed because of Lily, because I wanted to believe people could change, but clearly I was wrong. You were Not the first, Emma, and you probably will not be the last. He has a pattern of pursuing younger women, making them feel special, and then discarding them when things get complicated. I am telling you this not to hurt you more, but because you deserve to know that none of this was your fault. He is a liar and a manipulator, and I am sorry he did this to you. 2. I have not decided yet if I am staying with him, but I wanted you to have the full picture. Take care of yourself. I read that message 3 times, and each time, I felt a new wave of nausea wash over me. I was not special. I was not the great love that made him realize his marriage was over. I was just another woman in a pattern, another ego boost, another distraction from whatever issues he was dealing with. Everything he had said to me, every promise, every sweet word, every moment I thought was real, had been a script he had used before and would probably use again. That realization broke something in me. I had thought maybe, just maybe, what we had was real, that even though the situation was awful, at least the feelings had been genuine. But no, I was just another mark. Another conquest. I felt so incredibly stupid for believing any of it, for thinking I was different, for ignoring every single red flag because I wanted so badly to be loved. When I went back to work the following week, everything had changed. People treated me differently. Some were sympathetic, giving me sad looks and asking if I was okay. Others were clearly gossiping, whispering, and going quiet. When I walked by, the story had spread through the entire company, and I had become that girl, the one who slept with a married man. Even though I had not known, it did not matter. Everyone had an opinion about what had happened. I tried to act normal, tried to focus on my work, but it was impossible. Every time I walked past the conference room where Daniel and I had first kissed, I felt sick. Every time someone mentioned his name in a meeting, I wanted to disappear. The HR investigation concluded that Daniel had violated company policy regarding disclosure of relationships, and he was given a final warning but not fired because technically our relationship had started outside of work hours, and I was not a direct report. Sarah had apparently decided to try to work things out with him for their daughter's sake, which I could not understand, but it was not my place to judge. I lasted 2 more weeks before I could not take it anymore. I went to HR and handed in my resignation, told them I had been offered a position at another agency, which was a lie, but I could not stay there, not with everyone knowing my business, not with the constant reminders, not in a place where I would forever be known as the girl from that scandal. My manager tried to convince me to stay, said I was talented, that this would blow over eventually, but I knew it would not. I would never be able to move past this if I stayed. My last day was quiet. I packed up my desk, said goodbye to the few people who had been genuinely kind to me, and walked out of that building for the last time. I felt relieved and terrified. At the same time, relieved to be escaping the gossip and judgment, terrified because I did not have another job lined up, and I had no idea what I was going to do next. About a week after I left, Daniel showed up at my flat. I was in my pajamas, eating ice cream and watching Netflix, trying to distract myself from the fact that my life had fallen apart. When I heard knocking at my door, I looked through the peephole, and there he was, looking disheveled and desperate. Emma, please. I know you are in there. I just need 5 minutes, please. I need to talk to you. I need you to understand. Every instinct told me not to open that door, to just ignore him until he went away, but part of me wanted answers, wanted to look him in the eye and hear him try to explain himself. So I opened the door, but I did not let him in. I stood in the doorway, blocking his entry, and said, "You have 2 minutes, talk." He looked awful, like he had not slept in days. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. "Emma, I am so sorry," he started. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. What we had was real. I fell in love with you, actual love, not just an affair. I was going to leave. Sarah, I swear, I was just trying to figure out the logistics, trying to make sure Lily would be okay, but then everything exploded before I had the chance, and now everything is ruined. Sarah hates me, Lily, barely. Looks at me, I lost you, and I do not know how to fix any of it. Please, just tell me how to fix this. I stared at him, this man I had loved, this man I had imagined a future with, and I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no anger, just cold, empty disappointment. I said, Daniel, you cannot fix this, do you? Understand that you destroyed your marriage. You confused and hurt your daughter. You lied to me for months. You made me complicit in something I would never have agreed to if I had known the truth, and even now you are still lying to yourself. You were never going to leave Sarah. You have done this before Sarah told me about the other woman 2 years ago. This is who you are. This is what you do. You chase the excitement of something new, and when it gets complicated, you make excuses and promises you never intend to keep. His face went pale. She told you about that. I tried to explain that was different, that was a mistake, but you were different. What we had was different. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. No, Daniel, it was not different. I was just another woman in your pattern, another ego boost, another escape from whatever is broken in your life, and I am done being part of it. You need to go home to your wife and daughter. You need to figure out how to be an honest person, and you need to leave me alone. I do not love you anymore. I do not even think I ever really loved you, because the person I loved does not exist. He was just a character you played. I stepped back into my flat and started to close the door, but he put his hand against it. Emma, please, do not do this. I love you. I will leave Sarah right now. We'll do whatever it takes. Just please, give me another chance. Give us another chance. We can start over. We can do this right this time. I looked at him one last time and said, there is no us. Daniel, there never really was. Now, get away from my door or I will call the police. I meant it too, and he must have seen it in my eyes, because he finally stepped back, dropped his hand and walked away. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I had said everything I needed to say. I had stood up for myself, and it felt good. The next few months were hard. I struggled to find a new job because I had left my previous position without notice and without a good reference. I burned through my savings paying rent and living expenses. I went to therapy to work through the betrayal, the trust issues, the anger at myself for missing all the signs. My therapist was patient and kind. She kept reminding me that I had been a victim of manipulation, that Daniel was skilled at deception, and that I should not blame myself for trusting someone who presented themselves as trustworthy. Slowly I started to heal. I stopped checking Daniel's social media, stopped wondering what he was doing, stopped hoping he would somehow prove that what we had was real. I started going out with friends again, started dating casually, nothing serious, just reminding myself that not every man is a liar. I got a new job at a smaller boutique agency where nobody knew my history, where I could start fresh without the weight of that scandal following me around. It has been about 8 months now since everything fell apart, and I am in a much better place. I still think about what happened, sometimes still feel a flash of anger or embarrassment, but mostly I feel grateful that I found out the truth before I wasted more years on him, grateful that I did not end up pregnant or more entangled in his lies, grateful that I learned some really important lessons about trusting my instincts and not ignoring red flags just because I want something to be true. I heard through mutual connections that Daniel and Sarah are still together, trying to make it work through couples counseling. Part of me hopes he actually changes, that he becomes the kind of man his daughter deserves, but honestly, I do not think about him much anymore. What he does with his life is no longer my concern. I am focused on building my own life on my own terms with people who are honest and genuine. If there is one thing I want anyone watching this to take away from my story, it is this: trust your gut. Something feels off. It probably is. If someone is keeping you a secret, there is usually a reason. If someone seems too good to be true, they probably are. Do not ignore red flags because you are lonely or because You want to believe in love, do not make excuses for behavior that does not sit right with you, and most importantly, know your worth. Know that you deserve someone who is proud to be with you, who introduces you to the world, who does not hide you away like something shameful. I also want to say to anyone who has been in a similar situation, whether you knowingly or unknowingly got involved with someone who was not available, you are not defined by that mistake. We are all human, we all want to be loved, and sometimes that desire makes us vulnerable to people who take advantage of it. What matters is what you do after you find out the truth. Do you stay and accept the lies, or do you walk away and choose yourself? I chose myself, and it was the hardest and best decision I ever made. So thank you so much for watching today's story. I know it was long and emotional, but I really wanted to share every detail because I think it is important for people to understand how these situations unfold, how manipulation works, and how easy it is to get caught up in something without realizing what is really happening. If this story resonated with you, if you have been through something similar, or if you just want to support the channel, please hit that like button. It really does help us grow, and make sure you subscribe to Storytime Central, because we bring you real, raw, unfiltered stories every single week. Stories about love, betrayal, drama, redemption, all the messy, complicated parts of being human. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Have you ever been in a workplace romance? Have you ever discovered someone you were dating was living a double life? How did you handle it? I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Guys, your stories, your perspectives, your advice for others going through similar situations. And if you have a story you want to share anonymously, you can always send it to us through our email, which is in the description, and we might feature it in a future video. Remember, you are worthy of honest love, you are worthy of respect, and you should never settle for being someone's secret or backup plan. Trust yourself, protect your heart, and do not be afraid to walk away from situations that do not serve you, even if it hurts. Even if you love the person, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love yourself enough to leave. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you in the next story. Bye everyone.